G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another cracking edition of Investing in the US podcast. From Los Angeles, I'm your host, Reed Goossens. Good as always to have you with us on the show. I'm glad you've all tuned in to learn from my incredible guests, and hopefully these guests will inspire you to go out and take massive amounts of action towards your financial and investing goals. This show is for anyone who wants to invest here in the United States of America in real estate, business, or as an entrepreneur. As you know, I'm all about sharing the knowledge, I should say, with my loyal listeners. And there's absolutely no BS on this show, just straight into the nuts and bolts. If you do like this show, please give us a review on iTunes, and you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter by searching at Reed Goossens. Also, if just one last note, if you are listening through this show through your ear holes, you can now jump on my website and see these video recordings each and every week up on my YouTube channel. So head over to reedgoossens.com. You can check out the video recordings. You can see my ugly mug, but you can see the beautiful faces of my guests each and every week. All right, enough out of me. Let's get cracking and into today's show. Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with David Zook. David is a successful business owner and real estate investor active in the multifamily space, self-storage, and resort community development with real estate holdings in several states and countries around the world. Dave and his investors own well in excess of $150 million worth of real estate, which they've acquired since 2010. And he has more than 3,000 multifamily units in his portfolio in some of the hottest job markets in Texas and Memphis, Tennessee. To top it all off, David is the lead investor in the planning and development of the largest resort community, Mahogany Bay Village, on the island on the beautiful Belize in Central America, which has been rated the #1 island in the world 2 years in a row by TripAdvisor, and it is at the fastest growing region in the Caribbean. Pretty excited to have David on the show, to say the least, but enough out of me. Let's get him out here. G'day, Dave. Welcome to the show. How you doing today, mate?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on your show, Reed.
My pleasure. Well, mate, to start it all off, I was a very impressive bloody introduction there. Do you want to maybe just rewind the clock back to tell me how you first made your first ever dollar? I'm not talking about real estate because we'll get into that story in a minute. I'm talking about how you made your first ever dollar as a kid and how you got inspired to be an entrepreneur, absolutely crushing it here in the United States.
Oh man, how far back do you want to go? So the first time I remember as a true entrepreneur, when I was probably about 6 years old, I was at my dad's place of business.
Mm-hmm.
I belonged to a really strong entrepreneurial family and a strong business family, and so I was at my dad's place of business. I think he was sort of babysitting me for the day, but I was 5 or 6 years old, and I got this idea that if I would nail a couple blocks together and make something just something homemade, and I'd bring it out to a customer that was, out looking around at our modular buildings, they would buy it from me for $1 or whatever it was. And so I think they just felt sorry for the poor Amish kid that was out there trying to make a buck. But that was my first entrepreneurial venture. But fast forward a little bit, ever since I was in my early teens, I had an entrepreneurial streak. And when I got into my late teens, I started investing, and I invested in our, several different ventures, and I had a trucking company where I used the trucks and trailers that I bought to haul the modular buildings that we built in our family business. And so that's where it started. I was into business, not so much real estate, and by design. My dad was a very successful business owner, and he took his money that he made in his business and he parked it in real estate, and he self-managed some of that real estate, and he actually did very well with the real estate that he bought from a capital gains perspective over the years. But I saw how some of that self-managed managed real estate was working, and I just decided, there's got to be a better way to make money than this. And so I specifically went out into the world thinking that I'm never going to invest in real estate. Well, fast forward a couple years after I started a couple businesses and partnered with several businesses and sold a business or two, I got myself in a position where I was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax per year. And I really, when I tell people how I got into the real estate space, I usually tell them I got chased into it for tax reasons. So through a lot of education, reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, finally, I got to the point where I realized investing in real estate can be not only a good cash flow vehicle, but it can also be a really good tax protection vehicle. So
Right.
I got chased into real estate because of my tax problem.
But it sounds like you've had just the most, probably the best upbringing you could possibly ask for in terms of your dad's business, being nurtured in that family environment to then going off and having, essentially the kahunas to go and start your own businesses and then be successful in that. But also learning from your dad and the good decisions that he made by placing his excess cash into real estate as a tax shelter, and also then to grow it as a sort of capital gains point of view. So it's pretty awesome too. Not everyone has that ability to just, as you said, be chased into real estate, right?
Absolutely, and I feel extremely blessed to be a part of the family that I was born and raised in, and how I got taught from a young kid about business and entrepreneurship and all that, and I grew up in it, so I didn't know anything different. But now that I look back, I appreciate it a lot.
Right. So walk me through now. You've been active in the as an entrepreneur, starting a handful of businesses, but you've got involved in real estate. So are those other businesses still active today, or are you purely focused on real estate investing 100% of the time?
They are still active today. I did sell a business that I owned. I sold that business 2 or 3 years ago. It was a trailer manufacturing business.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the modular business, the family business that I help run with my dad and my 3 brothers, that's alive and doing very well. I have a sales and marketing company. There's several businesses that I own that are still active and doing really well.
Fantastic. And the modular home business, I would imagine that you're absolutely on fire right now with all the people wanting to invest in mobile home parks. Is that what the type of modular homes you're doing?
So no, that is not the type of home.
Okay.
That's not the type of modular buildings that we're building. Most of the buildings that we're building have to do with either equine modular horse barns or modular garages. Let's say you own 2 acres and you got a house and you got a small 1-car garage off to the side of the house. You call us and we can bring out a 2-story 2-car garage and we can bring it in. It's about 85% built. We bring it in, we wheel it in where you want it. We set it up. When you go to work in the morning, you got an empty space there. When you come home from work that evening, you got a finished out 2-car garage there waiting for you.
Wow.
So that's sort of what we specialize in.
Wow, fantastic. So I'm going to geek out here a little bit. My former trade is I was a structural engineer and civil engineer. So do you guys pour the slabs and stuff like that, to have some sort of foundation to then build the structure off?
Yes.
Fantastic. And you get to pour it all in one day. That's fantastic.
No, typically the concrete gets poured before we get there. So
right.
we'll send a crew out, a week or a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, depending on the situation. But yeah, that gets done before we get there with the buildings.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot of modular construction, and I could imagine you guys have been approached by, I don't know if you are being approached, but just the way construction is being done on site. I've been involved in a lot of construction in the years, and it's very, we have all this technology, but yet we still can't figure out how the on-site construction in which we can make it, as you're saying, modular. And so we can reduce schedule time, you can reduce waste, and you can essentially save money for your clients by bringing it in-house and systemizing the whole process. But I know we're sort of on the cusp. I've been talking with a lot of different modular hotel construction guys, where they come in, they do the kitchens and the bathrooms all as once, and they come stacked on site like a Meccano set, and then they build up. And but the problem with that sort of modular construction, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, is that you from a code point of view, you're building the roof and the floor, so you have a double redundant system. And I don't know if you've had any experience with any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the big advantage here is not only being efficient on the cost part of it, but building your building in a controlled environment where,
Right.
your jigs and patterns are right there on the floor. You're building it inside. It doesn't matter if it's raining outside or if it's, if it's sunny, it's 110 degrees out or whatever. You're building it in a controlled environment. So when you do that, your standard of quality is pretty consistent.
Right.
So that's the other big advantage. And we can be, cost is another one. We can be, really efficient on the cost side.
That's fantastic. And through that business, which is clearly a family business, and been around for many, many years. You're putting all the profits into real estate. So let's get into real estate and tell me a little bit about, in the introduction, I had mentioned that you were involved or you own in your portfolio over 3,000 multifamily apartment units. That's incredible. How have you been able to juggle both running a successful modular construction business and also invest at the same time?
So there is, I'm a big team guy. I like to have really good people around me so that I don't have to be the guy on the ground doing everything. So on our modular building business, I got three brothers, and my dad is still active in the business, and we all sort of have our own sort of compartments or areas that we work in, and we also sort of have our own responsibilities. On the multifamily side, I'm not the guy that's out there boots in the ground managing it. I got a partner that's also does the property management piece of it. So he manages only the properties that we own. We don't do any third party management.
Interesting.
So he's the boots on the ground guy. I'm the guy. He's the guy that makes these properties perform. It's his job. Once we get the property through closing and we now own it, now it's his job to go out there, him and his team go out there and make that property perform. So really the way that I can be involved in the modular building business, the ATM business, the multifamily business, self-storage, the only way I can do that is I got really good people around me.
That's fantastic. I think that's a great example of just how important your team is. And if all those people listening out there, is that surround yourself with people who I guess, Dave, are more knowledgeable than you in that specific area, whether it be property management or, building a certain, jig or rig on site with your modular construction, or I just didn't even realize, in your ATM business, which just sounds fantastic. So tell me, when I hear all those people like yourself, with so many different, as I say, irons in the fire, it screams to me, business ecosystems and business opportunities. So it sounds like you're a type of guy that's constantly looking for just the next great opportunity to invest in. Would that be correct?
Sort of, but I'm also very aware of that, it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time to find a really, really good team. And once I find a really, really good team, I tend to like to do business with them over and over again.
Right.
So
right.
even though, we're involved in the self-storage business, and with that said, I found my team that I'm very comfortable with. These guys are some of the best in the business. And so I'm not out looking for another team to do business with. I'm not out looking in another area of the market to really do business with. I like to stick to my core team and leverage their expertise. I love to do business with people that have their one thing. I'm more of a generalist. I like to invest in real assets, and hence the name of my company, the Real Asset Investor. It does, I'm not, I don't just do multifamily. I don't just do self-storage, but I like to find people who that's their one thing. That's their core competency. They have the 10,000 hours, as Malcolm Gladwell would say. They're the experts. They put in the time. They have the experience. I like to team up with people like that, and in my experience, that's been a big part of our success is teaming up with great people.
And so it's all easy to say, and easy said than done, to say team up with great people. So what advice can you give to some of the guys starting out listening to this show who want to invest here in the United States about the types of criteria maybe that you've set up, or the way in which you go about vetting out your quote unquote teams in order to be comfortable and want to invest your money with them?
Well, I get into a lot of deal flow, and there's a lot of people bring deals for me to look at, and the number one thing, I may always push the deal aside and say, I'm really not interested in the deal. I want to know who's behind the deal,
Mm-hmm.
who are the people behind the deal. If I don't know the people behind the deal, the chances of getting my attention or interest is pretty slim.
Right.
Now, if I have, 3 or 4 people in my network who say, man, I've been investing with these guys for the last 10 years and they rant and rave and can't say enough good things about it. Now, that's still a different story.
Right.
So if number one thing I look for in a team is what have they done? I don't care what they tell me. I don't care, I don't care about, initially I don't really care about anything about what, more than what have you done? What have you done in the last 10 years?
Right.
And so if I can find somebody who's really good at what they do, who can highly recommended by, either a friend or mentor or some of my advisory team or even, some of the guys in my network who've invested with me and they can, put in a good word for these guys, I'll pay attention to that point.
No, I think it's fantastic, and exactly how anyone should approach doing business with anyone is who's the team behind the deal or the investment opportunity, and how long have they been involved in that particular niche, whether it be self-storage or multifamily or even ATMs, by the sounds of it. But it's such an incredible thing to look back on. Have you made any mistakes that you wish that you could do over again because of the wrong team that you've chosen?
Of course. This is you don't get into this business without making mistakes and wishing you could have some do-overs. But yeah, I mean, early on I got into a multifamily deal where I was supposed to be the passive investor, and it was a 72 unit deal. It was my first major multifamily purchase, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was the only syndicatee. I was the only investor in this syndicated deal. That was mistake number one. But so there was a lot of things I look back on, that specific deal, and I'm like, wow, that was stupid, But luckily, a lot of those mistakes got made back when I was just using my own money,
Mm-hmm.
and not when I had, like I do now, where I syndicate deals and I've got investors' money in the deal.
Right. So could those mistakes have been avoided through different ways of management, or was it just the deal was a bad deal?
Both. So, so, incompetence, lack of quality of the team, which then, yeah, I mean, they brought the wrong asset in the wrong part of town, which, again, reflects back on the quality of the team. I mean, it's, right. It was a deal that we bought in Memphis.
Right.
Well, we're still buying deals in Memphis, and we do very well in Memphis, and Memphis has been very good to us.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
but today, in the last couple of years, we're not buying in that part of town. So
Right.
Experience and having a great team around you will not only will you make a lot of money and do very well in that space, but they'll help you avoid making mistakes that you would make without the lack of team. I mean, here's a good broker to have on your team. If he talks you out of buying more properties than he talks you into buying, that's the kind of broker you want on your team. I mean, he's highly motivated. He gets paid when you buy, right?
Right.
So a broker with a short term, with short term thinking would sell you anything, anything he can find, anything he can throw at you. But no, I'll bring deals to him sometimes, and he'll tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't buy it.
Right.
And he knows the area well. He's the best broker in the city, and those are the kind of guys you want on your team.
No, I think that's a very good piece of advice. If you have someone who's there in advisory, just making sure that you are not making the wrong step or the wrong move in order to grow your portfolio. So, Dave, tell me a little bit about this deal in Belize. I would been dying at the introduction when I said it that you've been involved in this construction of a Minderland Bay. Was that correct in Belize?
So we are, so it's in Ambergris Caye, Belize.
Mm-hmm.
Mahogany Bay Village is the name of the resort. I got involved in the deal because I knew the people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't running around Lancaster, Pennsylvania, trying to figure out how I could, take money to Belize. I found a team that I had done some business with that I really liked, that were competent, that I was really comfortable with. And when they said, "Hey, we're doing a deal in Belize," I said, "Well, if you guys are involved, I at least, at the very least, want to go down and see what's going on."
Mm-hmm.
And so I got involved, I don't know, 4.5 years ago.
Wow.
And at that point, it was just dirt and a couple canals on 67 acres. There was, I think, 4 homes there that were built by a prior development team that decided to not do that anymore. So when I got involved, basically it was just dirt, and I really invested in the team.
Right.
And the quality of the team, turns out, is what attracted some other big players. We just opened the doors a few months ago, back on December 6th, as a curio collection by Hilton.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of things that you can expect when you've got an all-star team around you. And we've got an affiliation with Coastal Living, which is part of the Time family, on one part of the resort that's more around use and enjoyment and lifestyle. And then the Hilton side of the resort is built around an investor model. So when you think about Hilton, it's not like a big 50-story concrete Hilton building. It's a bunch of different boutique. It's a bunch of different homes, and those homes are owned by investors.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the lead investor at Mahogany Bay Village. So it's been a
Wow.
lot of fun to be a part of, and it's fun to have it open and have guests stay in there. And we were down just a few weeks ago with a group of our investors and my CPA from Provision, Tim Gertz,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get our mind wrapped around his new tax bill. And about 17 business owners were down there, and we had some good questions flying around on the beach, at dinner, around the pool. And so, yeah, it's been a great experience and a lot of fun to be a part of.
That's it. That's incredible. And you say it took 4 years to get to opening. It's a good chunk of time to get, I guess, something as remote as Belize. But maybe talk me through some of the investor updates, or how you guys, who found the deal. That's such a weird part of the world to go hunting. But I guess if you are hunting down there, you find anything, right?
Well, there is yes and no. I mean, our team did a lot of due diligence in the Caribbean and South America and Central America, and a lot of the things that really enticed them to, a lot of the things that really enticed you can edit that part out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
A lot of the things that really enticed the team was being able to see into the future and see what
Right.
was coming. And when you look at it, 2, 3, 5 years later, you can see some of the things that they were talking about back then come into fruition. I mean, you're looking at, record-breaking tourist arrivals
Mm-hmm.
every year for the last 5 years. You're looking at big brands coming into the market. TripAdvisor calls it the number 1 island in the world 2 years in a row. First time they ever had called any place number 1 in the world 2 years in a row. So a lot of, Google just in the last couple of weeks came out with, the top 30 places where people are looking to invest in, and Belize is number 5 on Google's
Wow.
list. So, I
Wow.
mean, you got a lot. I mean, and that's just scratching the surface. Bloomberg came out with an article a couple of weeks ago. It's almost monthly. You're seeing, huge news organizations like that come out and mention Belize now. So it's exciting to be on the front part of that wave. And definitely when you're an investor, when you're a real estate investor, if you can get on the right side of a trend and
Mm-hmm.
swim with the current, it makes your experience a lot more enjoyable. So we experienced a lot of that in Belize.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I've got so many questions in and around that. Did you use a local construction team, or did you bring an American construction team into the fold?
So the management team is American. The management team is my partners, and we actually have a manufacturing facility in mainland Belize.
Mm-hmm.
So we took the manufacturing where the skilled craftsmen were. We took our manufacturing facility into the mainland where all the skilled craftsmen were, so we could do what we want to do without shipping 100 employees out into the island where your cost of living is a lot higher and where they're not with their families and all that. So we build a big manufacturing facility, and we actually build the homes on the mainland and get them barged out in prefabricated or modular sections, and then we build them on site on the island.
Did you guys personally, your family's business had a hand in that?
No, okay. that was totally unrelated.
Okay, well, the future endeavors, right?
Yeah,
that's really incredible. And I'm a nuts and bolts construction guy. I've been involved in construction management for over 10 years. I love that sort of stuff. And it's problem solving. You got this remote island. How the hell do we get infrastructure on this island? Water, gas, power. Then build the actual physical structures on it. It's a big mammoth task to undertake. And if your labor pool's a shortage, and I don't know what Belize is like, but it sounds like you guys got around it. But you can run into schedule issues and people on site and all that sort of stuff. So hats off to you all that you were able to figure it out, because the construction risk is a real risk when you're coming to ground up construction. And as you know, being an investor in an existing asset, which can, you tweak the knobs and can cash flow from day one, or ground up construction, the risk it's a completely different ball game, right? And I think that's a real, listeners out there, if you're thinking, I'm going to do ground up construction, think again. It's the big boys league. You got to roll up your sleeve. It's not for the faint-hearted, and there's so much other risk involved with it. Am I correct?
Well, when you look at any construction project, you're correct. Now you wrap the international piece around it. Now you can probably 3x or 5x,
right?
All those things that can go wrong. So there's graveyards in Belize for projects for entrepreneurs that tried to come in there and build do ground up development.
Right.
So it's hard. Yeah, it's very hard. But again, if you think it's important to have a team around you in the U.S. where you're buying partially stabilized assets, it's so much more important to have one offshore when you're doing ground up development, for sure.
100%. Who, if you don't mind me asked, financed the deal? International company or a local company to Belize?
No, it's funded primarily by investors.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there was a debt portion and an equity portion, right?
Oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
no, and one of the biggest risks in a development project is what happens if there's a change in the market. You got financing, you got the stuff happens.
Right.
Well, we took that part of the risk out of the deal, because this the 200 homes that got built in there for Hilton, they're built in cash. So there is no financing. So that removed a big part of the risk. On stabilization, once we get up to 90% occupancy and we have a good long track record, 6 to 12 months track record of doing that, there will be financing, and we'll be able to refinance our cash back out and expand down there, or do whatever we want to do. But yeah, that took a big part of the risk out, is by keeping the bank out of it and just funding it primarily by private investors like ourselves.
That's a very interesting way of doing it. And I'm right by saying that there was a debt portion that you could invest in, or a equity portion you could invest in. There were different tiers, were there?
No, at this point, no. It's all cash.
Sorry, when I meant tiers, I meant people could come in at, they act as the bank, or you could sit in a higher, more riskier position, but you get a higher return. So there's tier 2, tier 3, and then obviously the highest position, which is the most riskiest, the top of the equity stack, which is hopefully the developer who's the last person to leave the ship if anything went south.
No, scratch the financing. There is no leverage. So there's 2 ways to get involved. One, you went in and bought a home by yourself. Cash, or 2, you got into a syndication, and that's what we did.
Right.
We created a syndication, and it would take 3 lots with anywhere from 6 to 9 homes on them, and we'd create a a
A
two
pool.
to $4 million syndication, and then
Mhm.
10, 15, 20 people came together and funded that deal. That's how
Got it.
that's
Got
how it got built out. So those are the two ways you could get involved,
it.
but none of it included any kind of financing from a bank
Right. Right.
or a financial institution.
And are the people getting a return on their money throughout the hold period, or once you've refied, that's when the money starts to be come back to investors?
Well, there's two ways. Yeah. So obviously now that there's guests staying in it since December 6th, there'll be, cash distributions going back to investors. But yeah, then after we're stabilized for a certain period of time, then we'll bring financing in, and most likely a US based financial
Right.
institution.
Right.
And then we'll be able to finance our cash back out.
Fantastic. Well, Dave, I know your time is very precious, so I don't want to keep you any much longer, but I want to end the show by asking you to get into your top 5 investing tips. You ready to dive into it?
Sure.
All right, mate. What is the daily habit that you practice to keep on track towards your goals, if you have a daily habit?
Well, yeah, you didn't give me any warning here, so I'm thinking on the fly. Daily habit. One of the things I like to do is write down either the night before or the morning of, write down some of the tasks that are most important that really
Right.
need to get done. It's
Yep.
really easy to come into work and just dive into your emails and, take care of some of the things that are screaming at you and that you really need to take care of at some point. But I've found if you do that too much, you sort of wander all over the place and do things that are necessary, but not do things that are super important to advance your overarching goal.
Right.
So I like to sort of make a note and in order of importance. If I can make a list of things that need to get done and just bang out that list, that's been very helpful to me.
No, I think creating a list is so important. As you said, you can sometimes get caught up with the noise of it all, right? You just got to dive into your emails and do this and that, and you don't actually get focused on maybe the 2 or 3 tasks you actually do need to get focused on, and it just gets all in the noise. So I think it's a very, very incredible piece of advice. Who is the most influential person in your career to date?
Oh man, there's a couple. There is as far as people that I've learned from their reading materials and their teachings, I would have to say probably Robert Kiyosaki.
Right. Yep.
For as people that I've been around and been part of their group and their inner circle, I would say Robert Helms and Russell Gray. I've got a mentor that's on my advisory team. His name is Bill Poole. He's a local guy here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He's been just a great guy to have on my team and run stuff by him, and I can always count on his wisdom and experience. So I'll go with those. I'll go with those 4.
Oh, that's 4. Yeah, couldn't count. But awesome stuff, mate. You talked a lot about teams today. What is the most influential tool? And it could be digital, it could be a hard, your phone, it could be a piece of software, it could actually be a person. But what is the most influential tool in your real estate business?
Well, I'm not a tech guy. When I talk about a list, we're not talking about Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets. We're talking about pen and paper.
Yep.
So, if I was to say an app, I would say my financial calculator.
Yep.
Something where I can throw the numbers on and figure out, okay, here's my monthly payments. Here's what it looks like if we go with this percentage interest. Here's what we go to look like if we go with a certain amortization. I would say a financial calculator.
Fantastic. What does the future hold for you both personally and financially moving forward into 2018 and beyond?
Fortunately, this job is one that I hope to be able to do when I'm 90 years old. This job is not a physical job. It's a job where, it requires you to stay sharp mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It requires you to build great relationships. So I would say I want to be doing what I'm doing now when I'm 90 years old.
90 years old. Fantastic. I think that's a great way to look at it and leave a legacy of incredible investments and incredible happy people in your syndications, right?
I've reached every financial goal that I've ever set, and when I look at what I do and what really brings me joy is when I can deliver value to my group of investors that have been investing with me a long time. Also, I really like to introduce somebody to the investing world and give them another perspective on investing outside of the conventional
Right.
investing realm, like Wall Street and 401ks and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that gives me a lot of pleasure.
I think that's incredible. And my final question for you today, David, is where can people reach you to continue the conversation? They want to learn a little bit more about you. They want to learn a little bit more about the deal in Belize and just be in your sphere. How can they do that?
So you can send me an email at davezook, DAVEZOOK, at therealassetinvestor.com. Dave Zook at therealassetinvestor.com. There are several reports. There are several, depending on the type of asset that you're interested in. If you're coming in and saying, "Man, ATM sounds really interesting," I got a lot of really good educational material to kind of wrap your mind around to say, wow, this is something that I want to maybe get involved in, or this sounds really interesting. If you want a self-storage report, I can educate you on the self-storage side. So I got a lot of free reports. You can go to our website at therealassetinvestor.com, look at some of the different assets that we invest in. And if it looks interesting to you, send me an email. We got a whole report. I did a webinar on our Belize project with Robert Helms a few months ago. I got that report. I'd be happy to send it out to you. So just send an email to Dave Zook at therealassetinvestor.com, and I'll make sure that you get a response.
Fantastic. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day. But I just want to quickly summarize some of the big takeaway learnings that I have, took away from our conversation. I think the biggest thing, that the underlying theme for today, was establishing the best team around you. And I think you are a guy that is, have had so much success because you've surrounded yourself with the right team. You've gone through the corrective vetting processes in order to sort of get those right teams in the different areas that you're investing in. ATMs, you're investing in Belize, you're investing in self-storage, you're investing in multifamily, you have your personal business with your dad and your three brothers. There's 5 things on my hand that I've just mentioned, and I'm sure there's a myriad of other things that you're doing, but you're all surrounding yourself with in each and every one of them, you're surrounding yourself with incredible teams. And something, as you said earlier in the piece, that you don't have to be that expert in property management or in ground up construction or in whatever it might be, but you're getting the right person involved in your team in order to advise you to make the right decision. Have I summarized that correctly?
That is absolutely the most important part. The team is the most important part. If I would invest 10,000 hours into any one of those asset classes, I would imagine I could get pretty good at it.
Right.
And, but I would have to devote a big part of my life to that specific asset class. And I just, early on, I just decided, why not shortcut the process and bring somebody on board that already has the 10,000 hours, that has a really good reputation, that has a good long track record of success, that has, done business with people in my sphere of influence. And, when you can do that, you'll shortcut the process and avoid a lot of expensive mistakes as well.
I can imagine. Well, mate, thank you so much for dropping by. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Reed. I enjoyed it.
Well, there you have it. Another great episode jam-packed with some incredible actionable advice and some awesome takeaway tips. If you do have any questions for Dave, please jump on my website because all the show notes will be up there at reedgoossens.com. But please remember to reach out to Dave to learn anything and everything about what he does. Really, really, truly incredible man. Thank you again for taking some time out of your day to continue to grow your financial IQ, because that's what we're all about here on this show. And we're going to do this all again next week. So be safe, take care, and happy investing.